For those who don't know, this is the Corporate Dropout channel where we talk about our personal experiences with entrepreneurship. Absolutely, and it's a lot of information that a lot of these guys and scammers, not necessarily scammers, but the guys who have the gimmicks about, quit your job and go start your own business. They make it seem so easy. But what we wanted to let people know, we wanted to give them an inside look of what the day-to-day is like so that you know what to expect if you decide to be an entrepreneur and start your own business. So today's episode is episode 1, where the topic is being okay with being broke. That's today's topic.
All right.
So Mo, you wanted to chime in on that?
Well, before we even chime in on that, first thing is we want to introduce ourselves. We want to let people know who we are, a little bit about our background. Not too much, but some people might be looking at it and they don't know who we are. So why don't you introduce yourself formally?
For those who don't know, I'm Brian Spady. I started my own marketing company, online marketing company called Spady Marketing. 29 years old, and live in Houston, Texas. Grew up in the Fort Washington, D.C. area. Also, got New York roots as well. So that's a little bit about me. What's good with you, Mo?
As you said, my name is Mo. My full name is Ibrahim Mohammed Nwagui. I got to say the whole name because some people know Ibrahim, some people know Mohammed, some people know Mo, right? But it's all me. I have a custom T-shirt printing shop. It's called Mr. Nwagui's Custom Tees. I started it about a year ago, and I went full-time with it back in October, and, I moved into a space in January, and we're just steadily growing. So, if you need a type of service, make sure you let us know. A little bit about my background. I am from Washington, D.C. I'm from Southeast, and I'm from Southeast because I put the F in there, not the TH.
South.
So I'm from Southeast. I actually graduated from a college. I went to school at South Carolina State University. Shout out to the Bulldogs. And now we're in Houston, man, and we're making our way down in Houston, dog. So, we started this thing to really just give the true raw background of starting a business, because like we said, like we always say, sometimes when you're dealing with people who have already made it, they might have gone so far and they forgot details.
Absolutely.
During the journey. And the journey is the biggest thing. And if I let you know my journey right now and the things that we're dealing with, then you might realize earlier than later that maybe this is not for you. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's another thing.
So that's why we want you to know exactly what it takes to do what we're doing, because it's not all glamour. And you might see it and say, you know what? I can't deal with that. I need to go ahead and stick to what I'm doing. Or you might say, you know what? I like that lifestyle. I like where they're going. I think that's what I want to do. So that's the premise behind the corporate dropouts. We want to be a light during the struggle. We don't want to look back and try to remember. We want to give it to you live while we're going through the struggle.
While we're going through
it.
And not even that is necessarily a struggle, but just the day-to-day experience. Yeah, let me get some of that. We drinking water, by the way.
We want to swing it around so they can see the.
We drinking.
See the water.
Oh, my bad. We drinking, what's this, Bay? This Bay water.
Luxury water.
Nah, but basically what we want to do is we want to give y'all the day in and day out. Like he said, we don't want to get too far and then forget. And a lot of people really, they don't give you the details. They say, oh, I quit my job and started a business and now I make such and such thousands of dollars, and you can too. But the thing about online and social media is that they make entrepreneurship look so easy. Mm-hmm. So the first topic of, for episode 1, that we agreed upon was be okay with being broke.
Yes.
And a lot of people may not understand that if they've never went through or decided to get into entrepreneurship. So if you've never been in entrepreneurship and you've never started a business before, everybody knows that you got to dish out some bread at the beginning, out of your own pocket. I mean, even if you get a loan from the bank or anything, you still got to get the business running at full force. And it's not snap of a finger. It's not turnkey. You got to build it up, build your portfolio. You might have to cut your pricing a little bit, less than what you originally wanted to. So now you really breaking even. But Mo, go ahead, give us. I know you had an experience with having to accept the fact, like, hey, I'm not gonna have that extra money that I used to have when I was working for corporate.
And I will say this before I even get into that, is that there'll be a few disclaimers as we go along. The first one will be that we're not saying that it's a guarantee that you're going to be broke. We're saying that you have to accept the fact that what you're doing can make you go for broke. So we're not saying it's mandatory. Some people may have been able to have a clean transition. We're speaking for the people who have had to take a loss and reinvent themselves and build themselves from step one. So that's what we're speaking for. The reason that I can speak for that person is because, like Spady said, I've gone through that, and I'm going through that right now. Okay, so like I said before, I started my business, Mr. Nwagui's Custom Tees. As a matter of fact, it's a conglomerate, so the whole thing is Nwagui Co. I started it back in June. I was what they call moonlighting my business. I was working for a corporation, and I would do my business in my spare time in my garage. Okay, I would do my business in my garage. A series of events happened. The first major event was I'm in Houston, and I experienced Hurricane Harvey.
Right, the hurricane hurt a lot of people with business, man.
People are still hurting.
Yeah,
because of that hurricane.
There's some people still living in hotels and everything. But go ahead.
So when that happened, I came up with.
You lost a lot of your work, though, right?
I lost my biggest asset, and that was my space. I had a designated space to do my work. I didn't really necessarily lose my work. I lost my space. And in the industry that I'm in, you need space. But like I said, so that happened, and I was faced with the decision to either try to stay in that space and rebuild or whatever, or move to my in-laws, where my wife and I, we decided to move with my in-laws. And fortunately for me, I have a great set of in-laws, so I don't have the horror stories like some people. But nonetheless, it's not my space, so you have to keep that in mind.
So you ended up having to get a storefront, right?
Well, that's a little bit down the line.
Okay.
Because the next thing within the sequence was that I lost my job.
Right.
You see, that was pivotal.
Was that okay? So let me ask you this: so you currently have a storefront for a workspace?
I currently have my own shop.
Right.
It's in Webster, Texas, which is a suburb of Houston.
So, just to be clear for those that are tuning in, you ended up getting that space after you lost your job?
After I lost my job.
So I just want people to understand, because it ties into today's topic, being okay with being broke, is he lost his job. Think about this. You lose your job, and then you have to spend money because you got to pay for that space, right?
Exactly.
Then you have to spend money on a workspace so that you can conduct your business. And this is after he lost his main source of income. So he had to make a decision like, I need to be okay with being broke for a little bit so that I can run my business. And that's what we mean by be okay with being broke. We're not saying don't have no hope.
Shout out to Uber, too.
By the way.
Shout out to Uber, by the way.
By the way.
And that's a spinoff. That's a spinoff of doing what you have to do, right?
Yeah.
So whatever, like, you can't feel embarrassed about your means as long as you have your plan. And we'll get to that a little bit later, but I'm just gonna continue going on with what I said. So basically, I lost my job. I had some decisions to make, and that decision involved me. Instead of me going back into the traditional, work search, I had my business, and I decided to invest in my business. And so that's what I did. I ended up buying some industrial grade equipment, and I began to look for a space. And at the same time, I started to ramp up my campaign for what it is that I was doing.
So when you lost your job, because you were doing what, LP?
Yep, asset protection.
Okay. Loss
prevention, tackling bammers.
So
basically.
Yeah, so I remember the stories. Mm-hmm. So you lose that, and then you make the decision like, hey, I need to invest in my business. was there any type of fear at that point? I know you brought up Uber because everybody has that to fall back on, like going in between gigs and everything. I know you had that, but was there any like fear that you had? Because think about anybody who hasn't started their business yet. Like, for those people, they would think if they were in a situation like that, they would put a hold on running their own business.
Mm-hmm.
They would just stop everything. I know you were running it while you had your job, but imagine if somebody was running it out of their house, they lose their job. I would think that anybody who's not in it would be scared to dive into, and man, let me get some money and get my own workspace where my business could be my main source of income. So were you scared?
Well, let me give you a background on why I was no longer afraid. People who are watching this, they may know, they may not know. In 2015, I lost my father. And when I lost my father...
Rest in peace, Pops.
Rest in peace to my father. I made up in my mind that I can't wait. There's no more waiting. Like, there's never going to be a perfect time. There's no more waiting. I have to take my opportunities as they come. And around that time, Spady and I, you know, we had began to develop a mindset that kind of prepared me to take that first step of faith, you know. And that's why when the opportunity came and presented itself, some people, they might have looked at it like, oh man, I need to step back. But me and the mentality that we developed, that was a sign for me. Okay, well, all these doors are closing, so that means that it's time for me to take this one thing that's looking wide open.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, you got to go with your gut when it comes
100%.
to. You got to go with your gut when it comes to, you know, making business decisions, not necessarily, you know, like the type of decisions you was make at, you know, your everyday decisions. When it's big decisions like that it could sway either way, like everything's banking on this one decision, always go with your gut, because we kind of just built a foundation of doing that, and we've seen that it had already was working out for us. So you can't make the type of decision that he made to go in and invest money into something after he lost his job if you don't have the mindset for it. Because if you go into it without confidence or any type of foundation, it's going to fall.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to fall apart.
Exactly.
And then you're going to come back blaming us like, oh, y'all said, you know what I'm saying? But you gotta know within yourself. You got to go with your gut. So you went with your gut, was like, man, look, I know I'm going to be good. I know I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to go full-fledged into the business. Mm-hmm. And so fast forward a little bit. So how's everything? Where are you at now?
Where I'm at a point where things are beginning to normalize for me. They are just beginning, and we're about to make June 6th. It will be 1 full year that I began my business, and things are just now beginning to normalize for me. So
you had to accept that whole year. So you basically had to sacrifice a whole year of you know, having that extra money in your pocket. You know, just so you could have your business. But look at it, though. You said you're starting to normalize. So imagine in another year, where would you be? Where would you be in another year if you already went from the bottom of the bottom? I mean, start from scratch. You didn't even have no equipment. Didn't even have any equipment.
It was an idea.
It was just an idea. You went from an idea and not having any money to now to where it's starting to normalize for you. And that's what we mean by be okay with that. Mm-hmm. It's okay if you start a business and it ain't working out for the first month. Because when you run a business the first month is like one of the longest months. Mm-hmm. when you start your business. It's one of the longest months you're gonna experience, because you're like, okay, I'm gonna start my business, let me try to go get a sale. You might get some sales and you might not. But that first 30 days goes by so slowly. And then when you realize that you didn't make anything, if you're not mentally strong, and you don't have a mental foundation that I'm going to stick with this, you're going to fall apart. Mm-hmm. So 1 year later, it's starting to normalize for you. And that's all because you were okay with the fact like, hey, I'm going to be broke for a little while, but that's okay. Everybody thinks they could just start an e-commerce store and just make $7,000 a week or a month. You know what I'm saying? And everything is Gucci. It's not that easy, and that's what we.
I said that I wouldn't lift my head up until 1 full year has elapsed. You see what I'm saying? And I dedicated myself to that. So no matter how hard it got, I said, you know what, man, I gotta at least get to this year. I gotta at least get to this 1 year. You see what I'm saying? And so that's where I'm at.
And then you reevaluate.
Because you don't want to become oblivious to facts. And we can talk about facts and whatever later on, but when we're talking about just like your bottom line and you're not making any money or it just doesn't make sense, it's not looking up, your business model is trash, you can't be oblivious to those things if you're a business owner. So there's a time for you to be very optimistic and be positive, and then there's also time for you to look at your numbers and see if it makes sense and reevaluate. If it doesn't make sense, it doesn't mean quit being an entrepreneur. Quit being an entrepreneur. It means you might need to adjust what you're doing or what you're selling.
Yeah, I've seen people. As y'all know, I do marketing for small businesses, bigger businesses, for musicians, artists, for brands, people who are trying to build their brand, people who are trying to be politicians. So one thing I've noticed is that being a marketer, you kind of get the insight to what that person is doing with their business. And what I've noticed is that a lot of business owners, especially last year, for some reason last year was like, there was like this boom of like everybody wanted to start their own thing because they had access to, they had the tools and the resources on the internet now. But one thing I've noticed is that a lot of those people aren't around anymore that I originally was working for. Not because I got rid of them. They just stopped doing their business because they got discouraged in the first 3-4 months.
Stamina, you need it.
And it's like, you gotta be okay with that. You gotta be okay with going in.
It was at this moment that he knew.
With going
he
in,
fucked up.
Hey, that was your wife. I just canceled.
Oh, I'm gonna hear.
Hey, we got it on video though. We got it on video. It was me, Lex. It was me. That was Mo's wife calling. I just declined her call because he's going live. Is that on Facebook?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, so I'm going live on Instagram.
Let me give me another shot on that.
But a lot of those businesses though, 4 months in, they aren't even around anymore. Or people change their idea and it wasn't for me. Well, you didn't even give it a long enough of a time to germinate and see what it could have been. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And that's what we mean. You got to be okay with being broke. That first year, man, when was the last time we went out and like, I'm talking about like out on the town? Because me and Mo, we hang out and we'll link up, you know what I'm saying? Even though we live on different sides of the city, we'll link up and go out. We used to go out pretty often, but yeah. I mean, we haven't gone out since we've decided to start our businesses.
I mean, literally, that was like the last time that we really went out was like that night we was like, when you was like, I'm about to start my joint. That might have been like the last time we went out.
I remember that.
Yeah.
That was the last time because we decided at that point we were gonna be okay with being broke for the first year because we know at the end of that first year things will normalize. Mm-hmm. And then so what's gonna happen in another year, Mo? You know what I'm saying? Like imagine, man, excited. So it's all good. So. That's one of the things we wanted to bring y'all into today for episode 1 of Corporate Dropout. Just to give my own personal experience, like I said, I do marketing for plenty of businesses, and a lot of them just kind of fell off and people had great ideas. They just couldn't stick with it long enough because nobody was buying my product, or I had a couple of people do it, which is always your family members at first. So they always give you momentum. Friends and family always give you momentum. But what about when you got to go sell to the guy standing in front of the library or the guy standing in front of McDonald's and you trying to sell them your product, whatever it may be, whether it be a service or whatever. Whether you're trying to, get somebody to use your stuff on Instagram and they don't order it, it could really hurt, your ego. It could really hurt your ego, but that comes with business. Think about us as consumers. We turn down different brands every day, and these are multi-billion-dollar companies we talking about, and we turn their stuff down every day. Mm-hmm. So just imagine, you know what I'm saying? Just imagine if you were to stick with it, and you got to keep that in mind, and you got to have like-minded people. That's another thing.
And I will. You don't want to give them too much because that's going to be a part of
the next episode. Right. So you want to be around like-minded people. We'll get into that. But be okay with being broke for a little while when you start your business. Be okay with being told no, man, 10, 20, 30 times. I've been there. It's gotten to the point where we came down to signing me on a contract, and all I had to do was sign my name, and then the person turns around and says, I don't want to do it. Imagine that happening the first week of you starting your business. Mm-hmm. You're gonna change your whole game plan. Mm-hmm. You might stop doing it at that point. You be like, man, this ain't for me. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So, and I've had that happen before. I'm not even just using that as a made up story. That's actually happened before.
This is the raw.
And that literally, I think that was the first week. That was it was a dentist office. And I was trying to do marketing for them, and they were gonna pay me the price that we sat down and agreed upon. We had multiple meetings, and the contract got typed up. All the verbiage was there. Everything was good. They gave me the thumbs up. I go to sign the paper. Next thing I know, they said, "Hold on a second." They walk out the room, come back in, and they turn me down. Imagine that your first week. That would have been my first big contract, my first big business deal, and it didn't go through. But you got to be okay with that. You got to be, and I had bills due. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was banking on that deal to go through. I had bills due. But I didn't give up, man. And the same goes for me. Things are starting to normalize a little bit. You know what I'm saying? It's starting to be a little more consistent than it was when you first started.
So, I mean, just to kind of close it and wrap it up, man, like we said, being okay with being broke is a part of the entrepreneurship journey, but make no mistake about it, you have to have a plan. Absolutely. I don't care what kind of plan it is. You got to have one so you can because we're human, we forget things. So you have to be able to write things down and at least be able to check yourself, hold yourself accountable for what you said that you wanted to do. Because if you don't have a plan, that you can always change the game up, but if you write it down, then that's a contract with yourself. So, man, we hope that you guys, enjoyed, the conversation today. We sure as hell enjoyed it, and it's the premise behind this whole thing is just letting y'all know what's going on with us while we in it. So when y'all see us next year and we, man,
who knows? Who
pulling
knows?
up in a Wraith or something. I'm not really a Wraith guy, but whatever.
That's
sound cool.
It sound hip. You know what I'm saying?
You know what I'm saying? But just from the beginning,
You don't want to forget where you came from, and you want people to see what you went through. You know what I'm saying? Because it becomes relatable. Whenever we can relate to people, it seems okay. Like, oh, if Denzel Washington went through this as an actor, and I'm going through this right now, I'm okay. You know what I'm saying? If you're an up and coming actor, I'm just using that as an example. But if you see like somebody who's successful and you saw they literally started at the same step that you started at, then it keeps them going. It's like a boost of energy. So shout out to all the water brands that aren't paying us yet.
Yeah, but, not yet. Not yet. We just like them. Oh, and disclaimer: our views on this show are in no way, shape, or form representative of the views of these here brands that we have here. We just like to drink them, okay? So please don't come for us. So anyway, like I said, this has been Corporate Dropouts. I'm Mo. This is
Spady.
And we are